Thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. If you're a returning listener, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, really glad you joined us. Hope you like what you hear. So, we've had tons and tons of awesome interviewers or guests come on the podcast. Today's interviewee is no exception. Our guest today is Bob Thompson. He is a no bullshit, get things done kind of guy. He's going to share his story about how he went from a clerk in a grocery store and kind of worked his way through some jobs that he didn't like much, built his own business as a realtor, had to rebuild that business after some serious health issues, a couple of heart attacks. And he's going to talk about his coaching business. He's going to talk about his book. And I think you're going to love Bob's approach. You're going to love Bob's directness. And he's got such good advice and things to say. Don't want to keep you waiting any longer. So right now, let's just bring Bob on. So, Bob, thanks so much for joining us on Salty Ginger Talk. Glad to have you aboard.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet. So, Bob and I connected a couple weeks ago. We got connected on a like a podcast host, podcast guest dating website, and we put out what we cover on our podcast and asked people who may have some interesting stuff to present or talk about on the podcast. And Bob certainly fits that category. So you're going to talk to a guy or hear from a guy on this podcast who is kind of a master of resiliency and reinvention. And his story is very interesting. And we had a very good conversation with him the first time. We had a brief chat with him, but we'll be able to dig into it much deeper tonight. So really appreciate you coming on, Bob. If you wouldn't mind, just briefly, a quick bio about yourself, and then I'll start asking you all sorts of great questions and we'll get into it.
Okay, let's start. Quick bio. So I am 52 years of age. I grew up in Hampton Roads, which is essentially Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Virginia area, obviously strong military community and all of that. I eventually became a chemist. I worked on the plant, worked my way into the lab, and became a chemist. And in 2005, my ex-wife and I put a 3-year plan together to get me from chemistry straight into real estate. We got that done in 2 years, and I left the chemical plant in April of 2007, went full-time in real estate and never looked back. Had a fair amount of success over the years. In 2017, I did 70 deals as a solo agent, no help, no nothing, just grinding and working. And because sometimes when we get a little arrogant and cocky, sometimes the man above or the good Lord or whatever you want to call it karma, likes to smite thee a little bit, as I like to say. And in 2018, I had 2 heart attacks and a quadruple bypass. And by the end of 2018, I was completely broke. In a week and a half, Wells Fargo had canceled my checking account, canceled my credit card, and repoed my vehicle, which I eventually did get back, but that's neither here nor there. So I kind of had to pick myself up off the floor and start fresh and rebuild from there. So here I am.
Wow. Thanks so much for sharing that. One thing I'll note. You'll see this, Bob, that has nothing to do with you. We do this in every episode. I try to call out themes that we talk about a lot on the podcast because it's great for our listeners to hear those from people not named Joe Canfield, so we can validate some of the theories that we talk about. So one of them is dealing with problems, dealing with struggles, and being resilient through those struggles. And you just heard Bob talk about that, and candidness. Like, you can't deal with problems if you won't admit you got them. You can't deal with shit that's wrong if you won't admit that it's wrong. So one thing you'll see here, we have heard from our guests over and over and over again, is a candid acknowledgement of, hey, not everything in the world goes right for me. Sometimes it's self-inflicted. In Bob's case, like, there was major health issues that caused him real problems. And you just got to deal with life as it comes. You don't get a choice on some of the things that happen to you. You got to deal with them. You got to put your life back together. You got to keep taking steps. So I think that's worth talking about. So with that said, let's start with the chemist gig, because that was a very interesting story to me. So clearly, and I know this is a loaded question. Oh, you got a degree in chemistry, right? To be a chemist?
No, I do not.
I knew the answer to the question, which is why I asked it. So walk our listeners through how a guy can become a chemist and work on chemistry without a degree in chemistry.
Macy, say hello. Uh,
That's
so
Macy
two,
the cat. Macy the
Macy the
cat's
cat.
joining us too.
So basically, what happened is I had some friends of mine that worked at the plant, both in the lab and in the plant, and then I got the job working in the plant. That's where, when people bitch about their job, especially real estate agents, I have a tendency to laugh because I worked in 100-degree weather. I've worked in 10-degree weather, 12-hour shifts, the whole 9 yards. So I don't want to cry. I don't want to hear you cry about working in the AC on a real estate deal. Sorry, not sorry. No, not going to happen. So I got that job. I worked on the plant for about a year and a half. Now, the plan was, when I got the job, eventually, at the time, they were still promoting from within. So I immediately started, I joined a couple of the local organizations within the chemical plant itself. I started going to school because they were paying for it. So I felt like that was the smart thing to do. So after about a year and a half, because I'm smart, they went ahead and moved me into the lab. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because even though I worked in the lab and I was a full-fledged chemist, you get to a certain point where you're not going to move up the food chain, because when the math and science gets too hard, I don't understand it. There's not a thing I can do about it. Those are facts. If you don't have a degree in advanced science and algebra, when things go wrong, you can't fix it. You can wish to fix it, cry about it all you want, but it doesn't work. So I was never going to go above mid-level in terms of 12-hour shifts. I could do all of the work, but when things got hard, I couldn't fix it. They'd have to bring somebody else in. So my original intent was I was going to go back to school. Again, they're paying for it. So I'm probably 31. I'm sitting in freshman chemistry class, you literally burning a piece of cork on a Bunsen burner. I walk into class. I've got my own lab coat with my name on it, all of my own supplies. I mean, I literally do this for a living, day in and day out, testing products and things of that nature. And at that point, the light bulb went off, and I was like, I cannot do this for the rest of my life. I was making about 45 grand a year, which was decent money for the time period. You figure this is probably 2004, 2005, somewhere in there. And I just was like, I'm done. I can't do this. This is not where I want to be. And that's essentially my aha moment of, okay, I've got to find something that I want to do that's going to make me happy. So that's what started the whole, let's look at real estate. I looked at a half a dozen different things to try to figure out a way to eventually move on from the company. It wasn't the company, wasn't the people around me. I just wasn't happy. 12-hour shifts, 15 bosses. I don't work well being told what to do, and it just doesn't work.
Love it. Love the acknowledgement that, hey, this isn't going to make it for me, and I got to take action to do something different. Can you talk a little bit about the plan you put together? Because it's great for people to take action, and we certainly don't want to discourage people from taking action. However, we do encourage people to put some thought process into it and to put a plan together and to follow a plan. I would be shocked if your plan worked exactly the way you laid it out, but it worked nonetheless. It'd be great if you could talk a little bit about how you transitioned from uh, working at the plant and being a chemist to a completely unrelated industry, and you got that done in 2 years.
Well, we thought about it and we realized that, okay, at worst case scenario, I had been averaging about 25 grand part-time in real estate. That's while I'm working my regular full-time job. We could switch over to my wife's medical. And at the time, our biggest expense was we both had car payments. So the thought process was, well, if we eliminate all of our debt, and that's where I think a lot of people get wrapped up in, well, if I make more money, then I can keep doing my side hustle, do this. Go the opposite way. If you don't have any debt, you're free to do as you see fit. So we had the 3-year plan. We got it done in 2. And basically that was paying off everybody, making sure we had no credit card debt. We had no car debt. So all we had was the mortgage payment and our incidentals. I'm talking internet, cable. Obviously it was cable at the time. stuff like that. So at worst case, if I didn't do well, we would be okay. We wouldn't be living great, but we would survive and we would be okay. Nobody was going to go hungry. So that really was the plan. And then the thought process was, if I'm doing part-time real estate and making 25 grand, surely if I go full-time, I can at least make 50 grand, which is basically what I'm making at the chemical plant. So let's give it the shot. And that's what we did. That's really what it came down to, was, every dime, every extra thing going on went towards paying down the debt and getting these cars paid off.
So you put yourself in a position that you could make the leap. And even if it didn't go great right off the bat, or you had to scuff a little bit to get to where you wanted to be, you weren't going to go underwater.
No, and there was no going back. I had already been grandfathered into the plan at that point. So anybody they brought in after me had to have a proper 4-year degree. And the other issue that I call it an issue, and I'll be blunt about it, is I was not a great employee. I've got a terrible attitude. I don't put up with a bunch of mess, but because I could run all 3 parts of the plant, I was invaluable in that respect. At that point, I would come in when I was needed to come in. I would do what needed to be done. Yes, you're getting my attitude with it, but I was competent and could do the job. So they weren't going to fire me. They were basically stuck with me because I could do everything I needed to do. And if I had stayed there, that's probably the way it would have been. So it was in my best interest to find something better to do with my life. And I finally walked out the door in 2007. I was 35 years old, which goes to show you could be any age and transition into what you want to do in this world.
For sure. No, that's great. And so you refer to yourself, at least in your bio to us, as an anti-real estate agent. What does that mean?
That means that I don't do things the way normal real estate agents do them, and never have. I don't go to closings. There's no point to me going to a closing because the job is done at that point. Let's be honest. If I've done my job correctly and I have a good, strong title company, we're not going to get surprised with anything going wrong the day of closing. All that is a photo op. And I'm not a fan of photo ops, so I don't do them. The other thing I don't do, and I get a lot of slack for this, is I don't do gifts and things of that nature. I don't see any point to it. My insurance guy doesn't buy me a gift. My lawyer doesn't buy me a gift. In what other profession do we buy people gifts? Now, if you want to do that and that's part of who you are, that's fine and dandy. There's no right or wrong way to do it. I made a decision years ago. I'm not going to do that. I don't even put signs in the yard because signs don't sell property. The freaking internet and the 400 places that it's on sell the property. What the sign does, it gives you the appearance that I am working for you. That's all it does, because 95% of my job is not physical. It's all up here. It's all on the internet. It's computer, it's thinking and all of that. We grew up in an environment to where we expected to see somebody physically do something. It's like doing an open house. An open house is for my benefit, which means if buyers walk by and they don't have an agent, I may pick up a new buyer, but it's not selling your house. Again, it gives you the illusion that I'm working hard for you because, wow, Bob took on a Sunday and spent 2 hours in my house, which I don't do. I refuse to do open houses, will not do them. If the house is vacant and you really want an open house, if I was to do one, I would get somebody else to do them, but I don't see any point to them. So that's kind of been my MO and my attitude pretty much from day one, that if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to do it successful. Obviously, you got to be coachable, and I've learned a lot from some really smart people, but I had to dial into what I am and who I am. And even my sphere of influence and my referrals, clients will tell other clients, now, Bob is not going to smile pretty and sugarcoat it. He's going to be completely blunt with you, and this is how we're going to do it, and this is why we're going to get it done. There is no, I walk into a listing appointment, you're not pricing the house. The numbers don't lie. We know what the house is worth, especially if it's in a cookie cutter neighborhood. I'm not pricing it outrageous just because you want me to. I'm not an order taker. We're going to use my experience and what you really want, and we're going to move forward and make it happen. And we're going to work together. But at the end of the day, I'm the guy in charge because I'm the one that's been doing it for 20 years and knows how to do it and has done it more times than I care to count at this point. I mean, it,
James, everything all right?
Yes, Joe, sorry, the internet it's not stable. Yeah, but go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. Well, fortunately, it happened at a great point because Bob had
we
just
picked the
finished.
perfect time, right?
Exactly right.
You never see that.
That could, yeah, that problem couldn't have happened better. Okay, so we just got done talking about why you're an anti-real estate agent. Thank you for illustrating that. So, James, we'll pick up from here when you do the edit. Okay.
All right, Joe, thank you.
Okay. So, yeah, that's great, Bob. Appreciate you walking everybody through that. And oh, dude, now did I lose Bob?
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. For some reason, you popped off my screen. Wanted to make want to make sure I wasn't talking to myself.
You'll get no good advice
Yeah,
that way.
exactly. I already know what I think. So you transitioned to real estate. How did you break into it? Like, obviously you had to have a salesperson's license. I'm assuming you're a broker at this point and have your own shingle out there. Is that true?
Actually, that is not true.
Really?
I never had any desire to be a broker or have my own mega team or any of that. I'm not that guy. I don't need my name up in lights. I don't want a big fancy billboard. My attitude has always been tell me I did a good job and pay me. That's all I care about. So it's never been my desire to run a big power team. And I like, quite honestly, doing things my own way and being responsible for me. Now, obviously, as I've transitioned into coaching, that's a little bit different story. But that being said, I've just never been look at my name in lights sort of guy. It's just not my MO. I have no problems helping a large power team. The group that I'm with now, I coach, and of course we run a daily huddle, and I absolutely love that. I'm passionate about it. I like to see all of my agents succeed. But at the end of the day, I just never had any. The only reason to get a broker's license to me in the state of Virginia really was to put out your own shingle or be a broker. And I had never had a desire to do all of that. I like the negotiation. I like the high of putting a deal together. I like closing them out. That's my thing. That's my passion. Even to this day, I don't know if I'll ever fully get out of production because there's just something about it that I absolutely love. I can't help it.
Got it. That's great. That's great to know. So when you broke in, how was the transition? Did you pick up on it right away? Did you struggle to start? How did it go when you first jumped into real estate?
So I like to say that I got lucky. I fell into something that I ended up being extremely good at. So I started out buying rental property. And quite honestly, I wasn't a very good landlord because I was way too nice and I was trying to run the properties myself, which is always a terrible idea, but I was being cheap. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. I'd love to give you some solid reason why, but that doesn't exist. The fact is I was being cheap and trying to save the commissions monthly. That being said, I fell in love with the hunt, the process, the looking at the properties, the negotiations. So ultimately, that's why I got my real estate license. That's why I sold my rentals and started pursuing the real estate from that end because I just, again, I'm not going to pretend otherwise. I got lucky, found something I loved, and then joined a big team in 2008. And that's really where I had a coach and a mentor to kind of teach me how to do things the right way. And from there, it just kind of snowballed from there. I mean, it's a combination of just blind, dumb luck and hard work. There's really nothing else to it than that.
And I would add one thing, taking action. That's one of the things we talk about a lot on the podcast,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. People don't walk into your living room and hand you stuff. You got to go get it.
Yeah, you got no choice in the matter, and it has to be done. You've got to, and you can do it at any age, and you've got to make the move and do it. I think that's important for people to know. I still know people right now that are, in their late 20s, early 30s, and they're just like stuck at a job, and they don't think they can do any better. And I'm like, well, number one, you've got way more options now than we had 30 years ago.
Yeah.
The entire world can be your partners in crime, the folks that will support you and move you forward, can bring you into new spaces that you never would have thought about. When we were growing up, or when I was growing up, if you wanted to be a rock star, it was a non-existent dream because you didn't know anybody in your little town that had ever done that. So, your circle was limited to essentially your neighborhood and surrounding areas. That's just the way it was. So now it's everywhere and anything. And I think that's a wonderful thing.
For sure. Yeah. Just anecdote from me there. I've moved all over the country because of what you just talked about. So, I'm 53. I'm just a year older than you. So same generation, but I don't think people realize, if you didn't like your boss or you didn't like your gig or whatever, you couldn't just post it on Facebook and shame them. You couldn't post it on social media and get a bunch of people say, "Hey, same thing happened to me at that place." It didn't exist. So you were really at the mercy of what and who you knew. And so, we would go look for other opportunities and then we would move. I've moved my family thousands of miles several times to pursue opportunities. And the world's very different now, to your point. So I think it's crazy to me that people will just stay at something they don't like that doesn't have a future when they're unhappy with it. If you like it and that's what you want to do, like if you found a niche and you like what you're doing and you're happy with your pay and you can see yourself doing it for a long time, great, more power to you. I'm not the one to tell you that you're doing right or wrong. But when you're clearly unhappy and don't like it, you got to take some action. You got to take control of your situation and build a life that you want. So kind of a segue into, so now you've got your real estate license, you've got your own business, uh, you work and you build up that business. Walk us a little bit through that, and then you have the health issues that really kind of cause you a lot of problems.
So in 2008, 2009, and 2010, I was the top listing and sales agent 2 of those 3 years at this big power team. 2009, my mother passed away, so I took some time off, but I rebounded. And again, I was top dog in 2010. Problem was I wasn't getting paid enough for what I was doing. I didn't have a great split. I had a team leader, the owner of the company, that wasn't compensated in the way I wanted to be compensated. So then I sat back, and as I did before, when I left the chemical plant, I spent the last 6 months of working there running the numbers. Okay, what am I paying for? What am I getting? And can I pay for this stuff that much cheaper? Is it a lead program? Where are my leads coming from? Okay, they're coming from me. So what am I giving all this money away for? What am I learning from my team leader? Okay, I'm not learning anything anymore. So maybe it's time to move forward. So at the end of 2010, I went solo as a solo agent, working essentially for myself. Yes, I worked for a brokerage, but I'm a solo single agent. So I did that. I moved forward. I had been doing short sales since 2008, continued to work on those and got quite a reputation for them. And then I started working with foreclosures in about 2012, and it snowballed from there, where my numbers kept consistently going up. So you figure 35, 45, 50, couple of years of 50. And then obviously in 2017, I did the 70. And I'm one of those people, and I tell my agents not to do this because I did it. I wasn't a guy that would track his stuff. Like I am what do I need to do? I'm going to put my head down and then I'm going to get it done. So I literally looked up at the end of 2017, was like, oh, good Lord. I did what? Oh, okay, cool. Well, I'm going to go buy some cool stuff. I got money in my pocket. I'm going to go buy some cool stuff. And I was just killing it. And then, like I said, we rolled into 2018, business as usual, bought a new car, bought an RV, and I'm a camping guy. So that was a big thing for me. And I had heart attack number one, 1st of June. Basically, we had gone that weekend to go visit my father. And that Sunday, we're on the way back, and my arm starts hurting. My left arm starts hurting. and it's hurting and it's numb and I don't feel good. So my girlfriend at the time convinced me to go to the emergency room. And I really thought it was just going to be, okay, you got some high blood pressure. They checked my blood pressure. They did the EKG. My blood pressure was over 200 on the top number, which is not good. And they basically attacked me. And they were like, sir, you're having a heart attack. And I really didn't believe them because it wasn't like what you see on TV or any of that. I mean, again, we grew up with Sanford and Son with, I'm coming to get you, Elizabeth, and seeing other people that have had heart attacks on TV and they roll on the ground and all that. I'm just sitting there, on the table and they've ripped my shirt off and they're, checking everything and doing all of this. And he found it. And I'm like, am I seriously having a heart attack? He's like, sir, you're having a heart attack. So they night flight me from Suffolk. I basically have to take the helicopter ride, which is about a $12,000 helicopter ride, by the way.
Ooh.
It ain't cheap. It is from Suffolk over to Norfolk. And they put the stents in and did all of the things. Obviously, I quit smoking because let's not kid ourselves. I was still smoking at the time, which is not a smart maneuver. And I knew I needed to quit. You figure I'm 48 at that point. And then October, the day after my birthday, I had heart attack number 2. Kind of the same thing where it really didn't feel or seem like a real heart attack. But they were like, yeah, you're having heart attack number 2. Went to the doctor. And at that point, they were like, we're done. The stents aren't going to work. We're going in. They were supposed to do a double bypass. They went in and did a quadruple bypass. They couldn't take the artery out of my leg, which is normally what they do. They took it out of my left arm. My left arm got infected. So between that and the bypass, I was toast. I was toast and I was broke. I think I had one last check come in from 2018, close to the end of the year, and I was done. Like between the 2 heart attacks, I had missed some work. Between being in recovery, I had to spend, because I was still living by myself at the time, I had to spend the first 3 weeks after I got out of the hospital at my father's because they had to be somebody there to make sure that, quite honestly, I could shower by myself and do all the things. Let me assure you, as a grown man, it's not fun to be at your father's house worrying that you're not going to be able to shower by yourself. And then my father's going to have to come in and help me scrub, which luckily didn't happen, but nobody wants to deal with that. I lived underneath my father's roof in a long time, and it was just like, no. And luckily I got through it and moved forward from there.
Yeah. So you've got the health issues. I'm assuming, and I shouldn't assume, a better way is to ask the question. So did you have health insurance when all this happened?
I did not have health insurance at the time.
Ugh, that's
Now,
tough.
that's twofold. Number one, I had done the last 3 or 4 years with health insurance, hadn't used it for nothing. I was healthy as healthy can be. So I really had that. And again, I was 46. This is 2018. So I was 46. I felt like at 46, I was healthy as a horse. I'm too young, which sounds really stupid now, but at the time, I'm too young to have, a major health problem, and I can afford to cover it if I do, which is true to a certain extent. However, when the numbers start to go up and go up and go up, you just doesn't exist. I mean, at one point, I had $600,000 worth of medical bills. Now, granted, most of that the hospital wiped out, so let's not kid ourselves. That being said, when I got a bill for $200 and something thousand, I just laughed because I'm like, no, what are you going to do? I can't pay it. It just doesn't exist. So that was my own stupidity because I really felt like I was healthy. I wasn't going to have any problems. And I was honestly, I remember, just being like, well, I keep paying for this insurance every year and I'm not using it. What the hell's the point of keeping it? And that's, to be honest, that definitely bit me on the ass, as they would say. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. I know it was stupid looking back, but at the time I was just like, well, I mean, I'm just rolling along and doing my thing. I am just about it as much in a groove as you can possibly be in. So that's kind of how these things happen sometimes.
Right.
Again, sometimes you get a little too arrogant, a little too cocky, and something or somebody has to reach out and smack you around a little bit.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's usually life that does that, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So before we move on, can you just explain short sales? We've never had a real estate. I know what short sales are. I bet our audience does not. And I think it's an interesting topic for people to understand since you've dealt with them. Could you explain them to the audience?
Of course. So as you know, we had the big recession. You know, the bottom fell out in 2006, 2007, which is when I went full time, which may not have been the smartest decision, but that's what happened. So in 2008, short sales started coming out for the first time. Essentially, what a short sale is the bank agrees to take less for the property than what is owed, and they forgive the debt from the seller. So it used to be, if you could even do a short sale, if we sold the house and you still owed 30 grand, you had to figure out a way to make those payments to the bank. The bank actually switched that and made it to where, okay, you don't have to pay the debt difference. The other thing that changed was you used to have to pay taxes on that. If you got foreclosed, you had to pay taxes on that because the law saw it as you were making income. Now, how in the world they're coming up with that, I don't know. But it used to be you'd get kicked in the head twice. Not only did you lose your $300,000 property, you've got to pay taxes on the $300,000 property that you no longer own. So when they changed that rule, short sales became a thing because they had so many people that were going into foreclosures. So I basically jumped in because folks needed my help. That's all we were getting with short sales. And I just figured, okay, we're going to learn as we go. And that's what I did. And I worked a ton of short sales. I learned the process from right end to the back end to the front end to where I am, even to this day, a legitimate expert in short sales, to the point where I've had other agents give me their short sale business because they didn't want to deal with it. Now, short sales are a lot easier now than what they were. Nowadays, you can bring in an attorney to help with some of the paperwork. But when I started doing them 2008, 2009, 2010, we were doing everything. I'm negotiating with the bank. I'm doing all of the heavy lifting is in my pocket. But it was an eye-opening experience, and I think it was an important one, and it really taught me a lot. And most people that get into short sale or that have a short sale in their life are for two reasons, either divorce or job loss. Most people are just not lazy bums and decide one day I'm not going to pay my mortgage anymore. Now, does that happen every now and again? Certainly. Some people just make really, really poor, financial decisions. But most people are in a position to where they don't know what to do. And then at that point, they bury their head in the sand because they're just hoping and praying and crying it will all go away. And it's my job to reach out and go, hey, this is fixable. What people forget, and I think is important for everybody to know, is that after 2 years after a short sale, you can buy again. Short sales are not permanent. I've had plenty of clients that did a short sale and then 2, 3, 5 years earlier were able to buy a new home and move on with their lives because they fixed whatever the problem was, got a great new job, got their divorce finalized, whatever the case may be. So that's really short sales in a nutshell.
Thanks for walking them through that. It just occurred to me when you were talking about short sales, I was like, with your approach and your kind of sweet, you seem like a perfect short sale guy because there's a lot of back and forth. You got to kind of tell people stuff they don't want to hear. It seems like a perfect fit for a guy like you. So I appreciate you walking people through the process because like it seems like you're tailor made to do short sales and foreclosures because they can be kind of prickly sometimes.
They can be very prickly, and I think that's if you're listing property, it's my job to be in charge and guide. I should be able to walk in that house and go, this is what the game plan is based on this neighborhood. As agents, we're not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and you're not going to win them all. It just doesn't work that way, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yep. So yeah, you were just talking about finally getting to the point where you had to ask for help.
Yeah, and that's probably the biggest thing that I failed at. It's like, so by the time I asked my father for help, and I literally, this is the conversation verbatim after I walked out Sunday morning and my car was gone. And like I knew why it was gone.
Mm.
Like it hadn't magically been stolen. It was, they had repoed it. So I had to have a very uncomfortable conversation with my father. I'm like, hey, can I borrow a car? He's like, well, where's your car at? I'm like, well, they took it. And my father loaned me the money to get the car back, but if I had told him what was going on, instead of having to spend so much in one shot, he could have made a normal payment. Then I would have been able to get back on track. That's on me. Almost lost the house because of the same thing. I had to reach out to a good friend of mine and borrow money from him. So if I had told people what was going on and asked for help, it would have made everything a lot easier on me. It would have been a lot less pressure on me, and everything just would have been better if I had done that. But pride goeth before the fall,
Mm.
and I didn't do that. The other thing I did is I just put my head down and started working, making my phone calls, doing all of this. And by doing that, it seems like I would say February of 2019, like everything started opening up again. And then it was like all of these people had been waiting to sell their property. I'm like, hey, Bob, by the way, we're ready to move again. We want you to sell this one and we're going to go buy another one. So just a process of just letting everybody know that I'm back out here, I'm working, I'm doing what I need to do, and slowly started to rebuild from there. It wasn't easy, but it got done. And like I said, and I make no bones about it. If I had told, my support system what was going on, it would have been way easier to deal with, but I didn't. And that's on me.
You learned from those situations and applied those learnings to your future, and that's how you've kind of rebuilt and gotten back. So really appreciate you sharing that, because I think it's so powerful for our audience to hear all that. So at some point in all this, you started a coaching business as well. How did that happen?
Well, as you know, I started coming back in 2019, and I had been asked to coach in the past, and I had kind of just blown it off. And I really realized that I wanted to give back to the industry because I had obviously been very successful and done well. So I joined a company, and I was there. I was coaching and, of course, selling real estate. That company wasn't a very good fit, and quite honestly lied to me. That's a story for another day. So I eventually moved on. But I fell in love with the coaching aspect. And from the real estate coaching, I started talking to different people. And then I got asked to talk about my story and what brought me to this point and how did I get here and all of that stuff. So then it became a combination of real estate coaching and growth coaching. And I don't want to say life coaching because everybody and their grandmother's a life coach. I call it growth coaching. It's just it's the way I'm wired. I'm not doing it. It's not happening. So at this point now I do both, and it kind of snowballed from there. And then, like I said, I got with Legacy Group International last year. They asked me to come on as a growth coach, for real estate. And then again, I'm doing my regular coaching too. And I've been asked to, again, do a ton of podcasts between both real estate and regular stuff. I've put a couple of books out, or in the process of a second one going out. And of course, kind of basically, I got to a point where I had enough people asking me about where I came from and why. It was like, well, apparently somebody wants to hear what I have to say, so I guess I have to start talking. And it kind of snowballed from there, essentially. It's like anything else. You don't feel like you're good enough, and you wrestle with, well, why the hell does anybody care what I have to say? And then you're like, oh, well, somebody does, and they're learning from my mistakes, so maybe I need to keep going. And that's pretty much been my process. I would rather you learn from my screw ups, hopefully early enough before you make the same mistake, and do better than I did when the time came.
So the coaching business comes from a lot of the someone making chicken salad out of chicken shit, right? So without all the challenges, the coaching business probably doesn't happen, because it gives Bob tons of credibility. People can go to him and say, hey, I know you've been through all this stuff. How'd you get through it? What do I do? How do I take action? What should I do in these situations? So you just got to keep that in mind, that even when life is tough, you got to push through. And you heard Bob talk about the way he rebuilt after his health issues was to work, Was it take action? Was it get shit done? Right. So there's no substitute for that mentality. There's no substitute for that approach. Wish there was, there's just not. So we're going to call it like it is. Um, on your so you've got how many real estate, roughly, how many real estate agents do you think you coach, Bob?
I am now again, we do a combination of one-on-one coaching, and then of course we have a morning huddle. So those numbers can vary. I would say at any given time, I can easily handle up to 20 clients one-on-one. And that's a combination of Zoom coaching, phone calls, obviously text, the whole 9 yards. And then we basically do a group coaching in the morning with myself and several other growth coaches at LGI, to where we mastermind. We like to call it, I don't like to do rah rah. I mean, it's important to be supportive, but at the same time, the problem with rah rah is everybody starts trying to outdo each other on the rah rah. And years ago, when I was on a big power team, you didn't want to piss the boss off. So you start creating clients out of midair. Then you'd be like, well, I've got a meeting next Thursday at 3, and they may want to sell, knowing full well that you haven't even set the meeting up. And number two, they're probably not going to want to sell. So we focus on real world problems. Guys, I got a listing appointment. This is what's going on. I'm not sure how to handle this. What do you think we should do? So then everybody kind of chimes in and we talk about that problem. So we mastermind every morning, and agents are free to talk about that. The other thing that we do that I focus a big deal on is compare and contrast, which is about the worst thing you can possibly do. Every one of us is in a different position in life, in a different spot. So if you've got two new agents and one is in a hotbed that's up and moving and knows everybody or knows the right people and starts doing business really quickly, doesn't mean that they're better, just means that for whatever reason, they were deposited in a spot that makes good sense and they're able to move quicker. Doesn't mean you can't catch up and outdo them. And quite honestly, every market is different. So if they sell $1 million properties because they live in $1 million area, what would you expect them to do? If you're selling $250,000 properties because you live in a $250,000 area, that's what you're going to do. So you can't get jealous or petty or get wound up over somebody else's volume. And I'll give you a case in point. When the last big company that I worked for, I was their number one sales agent for units. So in other words, obviously in 2070, I did 70 deals in 2017. That being said, I can't outdo volume over Northern Virginia. Cost of living in Northern Virginia is a lot higher. I got as high as third that year, but I could never outdo an agent in Northern Virginia on volume. It's literally impossible because they're regularly selling $1 million properties. Their regular properties are $600,000, $700,000, $500,000. My regular properties are 3, 4, 5. There's just no way. It's impossible. So that's a perfect example of I still blew everybody's doors off in units sold, but I'm never going to get to their numbers. But luckily my cost of living is lower. So I don't really need to be at that number in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, that's such a great mentality. We talk a lot about the only comparison you should make is to who you were yesterday. Because that's what that's what you should be comparing yourself to. Make yourself better today than you were tomorrow, than yesterday. Tomorrow, do the same thing with today. And that's the only way to move forward. The rest of it is nonsense because people come from different walks of life. To your point, they live in different places. Like there is no equalizing all of those variables. So it's just a waste of time to do that comparison game. I couldn't agree with you more. Do you find that your growth coach clients that are not realtors, do they come from similar backgrounds or is they pretty diverse?
It's always diverse. It could be as simple as I had a client a couple of months ago that what had been up until this point, it had been a stay-at-home mom and kind of downplayed it. And I'm like, no, you're a stay-at-home mom. You basically ran a business. You're paying the bills. You're getting the kids where they need to be. Your time management. You're doing the same thing, except your business is the business of the family. And unfortunately, you're not getting paid for it. I mean, you're getting paid in other ways, but you know what I mean. You're not getting a salary. So I think a lot of that is people need to understand that you can come from anywhere and be successful. And let's be honest, we have multiple people that we can look back on that have blown the doors off of this entire life and came from way more humbling spots than I ever remotely did, and then some. And if they can do it, then you can do it. Unless there's certain people that, yes, are better than everybody else in sports. That's a God-given ability, and there's nothing you can do about that. But that is a small minority. There are those of us that are really good with music and can make millions of dollars playing live on the stage. Most of us, we take advantage of what we're good at, and we work hard, and we can be successful. And the proof is in the pudding, whether it's what I like to say, Robert Johnson, the founder and creator of BET, who bought all those stations and then sold them for millions of dollars. Your Les Browns of the world, whether anybody likes Jeff Bezos or not, the man literally was selling books online, and everybody thought he was an idiot. And he did it, and he got successful. I don't know what he's like as a human being. I wish $90 billion. Maybe it does change me. Let's find out. If I become a jerk after having $90 billion, I will apologize right here. I don't know what that feels like. I don't have an answer for that. But clearly, when anybody can come from anywhere and be successful, at least is what I've seen. And that's some of the people that I try to not necessarily model myself after, but know that it takes hard work, and and it also takes meeting and reaching out and talking to people. And I think that's a big portion of it. I have a big habit of saying yes to just about everything, because why wouldn't I? Even if I don't succeed to the highest of heights, I still get to dip my toe in something fun. I got a friend of mine that makes movies. He's a past client. He's a good friend of mine. I've been in all of his movies. These are Amazon movies. These are Tubi movies. These aren't blockbuster movies, but at the end of the day, I get to go look at the IMDb and see my name in there. And I had a silly little 3-minute part that he put me in, and I had a blast doing it. And it's an experience I'll always remember. And to me, that means the world. That's a new experience that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise if I hadn't taken the time to get to know somebody and, communicate and work with them. I think it's important.
Yeah. I mean, you're just, so chemist, realtor, growth coach, actor. You're just a Dos Equis away from being the most interesting man in the world, Bob.
I played in a heavy metal band in the mid '90s. We didn't succeed, but we had a lot of fun.
Yeah. What instrument do you play?
I like to call it, I was the lead screamer and songwriter. So you figure I'm like 23, 24, like most bands, we imploded as most young bands do. And I'm all, it's almost a cliche as I look back at it, because it's basically angry suburban white kid. Nobody understands me. I'm going to yell into a microphone, which as I look back on it is really silly. It's like, really, dude, your life was so bad. You were living at home. You're bitching because your father doesn't understand you, and you're 23 and you've barely got a job. Okay, loser. Tell me how bad your life really is. But at the time, there's a lot of passion involved in it. And, let's be honest, ladies love a lead singer. So I didn't have any complaints at the time.
Yeah, for sure. We had this episode will get published in a couple of weeks, but we had a guy on yesterday and recorded his episode. Lifelong musician. Like he said, there's not a lot of money in it unless you're one of the upper echelon. But what he did was created a foundation that live streams concerts to immunocompromised or isolated kids. So they'll get an artist to, in the middle of the thing, say, hey, we've got a kid that's undergoing chemotherapy. He can't be here tonight, but hey, Jeff, we're all here for you. It's the coolest thing. So like there's so many different people, and his story was very similar to yours, where he never set out to do that, but through a series of events in his life, it led him to found this thing, and it's been going for 15 years. You're playing in a rock band made me think of it, because Levi was a great guy. And so his episode will air soon, but no, I love it. I love all the different experiences. And I think the takeaway here for listeners is take your shots, man. We talk about it a lot, but 100 years from now, we're all going to be dead. Like nobody's going to remember any of this. Like it's not going to matter. Fuck, it could be tomorrow, like you were driving home from a trip and all of a sudden, they're attacking you in the hospital because you're having a heart attack. You don't know.
We don't know when our story's going to end. And you figure if it had ended at the first heart attack, then I would have gone out the door a winner, because I had all this success and I had the new car and all of this. And if I had died after the second heart attack, I'd have gone out as a very, very broke individual, and my father would have had to pay for my freaking funeral and all of that goes with that. But we don't get to decide that. At the end of the day, we can be as prepared as we want. But you got to say yes. My buddy that does the movies, he runs the Miami Web Fest, and we actually last year, and I'm on the board with him, we did the first Virginia Black Film Festival last year. And I've got a chance to meet people that I never would have met. I met a lady at the Miami Web Fest that was on the Cuban boat lift as a 6-year-old child, and was writing and was putting out a documentary. When and on God's green earth would I have ever been in Miami, Florida at Miami Web Fest to meet this lady? How would that have ever happened? It would not have happened if I hadn't said yes and made connections and been who I am, to where Brian said, you know what? I trust you. I would like your help on this. Can you come down to Miami and help me with this? And that doesn't mean I was running the show. It means, hey, whatever you need, dude. It could be something as simple as, we're going to move these tables over here, or can you go help these people sit down where they need to sit and get the next presenter ready and all of that. There's a famous podcaster down there called Drink Champs, which is DJ EFN is kind of their main guy. And I got to sit down and meet with him and talk about old school hip hop. Now, he's not going to remember that conversation, but I'll remember that conversation till the day I die, because I got to talk about old school Virginia hip hop with a guy that lives it every single day. And again, if I had not done the things that I've done, or said the yeses on things I needed to say yes to, I would never be in that position. And to me, it's a very cool thing.
Yeah, that's such a great outlook and such a great message for our listeners to hear. That makes me think, on your growth coach clients, do you, I guess my question is, do you have a set approach, or do you like ask them what they want, what their problems are, and help them work through those? Or do you say, hey, you know, you've got to take control of your life, you've got to work on your mindset? Do you have specific things you work on, or do you tailor it to each client?
I tailor it to each client, because there are clients that are very motivated and just don't know where to go. And a lot of that is working through what I've had to work through in terms of the fear that you're not good enough. Things of that nature. I talk a lot about that opinion of what is little old me going to bring to the world, where I don't think anybody cares what little old me has to say. So that's a portion of it. Sometimes it can be a little bit of a kick in the ass and go, okay, well, you've done this, this, and this. So if you want to do this, you've got to keep moving forward. Sometimes it's a personality switch. One of the greatest pieces of advice I ever got, I talked to a world famous, real estate agent at the time at a RE/MAX convention years ago. And I was like, I love real estate, but I don't like talking about it. And she basically said, well, do you love what you do? I said, yes. She goes, if you don't tell anybody, you can't do it anymore. And it was like the freaking light came on. So sometimes it can be a simple matter of, okay, you want to write and put books out, and you want to do this, or you want to do that, or you want to build this company. Then, you got to start moving forward and find those people that can help you build this company, and reach out to that stranger and say, hey, I need help. What can I do to get better? How can you help me? So I think you do have to tailor it and understand that it's so encompassing, because there's many different ways to be successful in this world, and you've got to try it. And one of the things that I focus on a lot is, don't tell everybody your business. Work in the dark, because there's so many negative people in this world. There's so many people that have a opinion of you. And if you carry that weight on your shoulders, you're never going to break through. So the best way I do to combat that is I don't tell anybody what I'm doing until it's done. When I put the first book out, I didn't tell my father about the book until 2 days before it was going to be done. And the only reason I told him that the book was being released is because I was going to actually wear a proper tie for once in my life. And I wanted to get a tie clip from Dad, something that I could carry with me when I went and did my little presentation and presented the book to the world. But I didn't tell my dad, because I didn't want to go number one, I knew he would be proud of me regardless, but I didn't want to get all in my own head and be like, hey, I promised you this thing, and now we're 2 months down the line and it hasn't come out yet. Or what else am I going to think about that's going to slow me? I don't tell, I don't tell a soul. I pretty much tell maybe my one or two closest companions. My editor will talk about it, of course, because obviously she's my editor. But you don't need to tell everybody your business because they're just going to hate on you anyway. So just do it and then go, surprise, look what I did. I own a company now. Ha ha.
I love it. So your comment makes me think, can't remember where I heard it, but I heard someone or read it somewhere said, did you know that you can be vegan without telling anyone that you're a vegan?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's such, go ahead.
I'll give you a perfect example of that. I enjoy playing poker in my off time. It's something I enjoy doing. I wouldn't say that I'm super great at it. I do okay. That's neither here nor there, but it's fun. So when you go to the casino, a lot of times in the poker room, you'll see the 24-year-old that wears the sunglasses, has all the clothes, can flip the chips and play with the chips, talks all the lingo, complains about everybody else's playing, and then loses $300 every single day. And then you can look at the 70-year-old dude who has nothing else to do in his retirement, keeps his mouth shut, walks away every day $300 up. Which person would you rather be? At the end of the day, I want to be the 70-year-old dude who makes a couple of $100, enjoys his retirement and goes home. Doesn't run his mouth, doesn't talk about how everybody else sucks. And that's a big example of, do you want to talk about it, act like it, or do you want to just do it? Simple as that.
Yep. I love it. I went through college on a baseball scholarship, and that's a very black and white world. There's safe and out. There's no third call. There's ball or strike. There's no third call. Almost is a ball. Oh, that was almost a strike. Yeah, we call those balls. There's no third call. Like, you don't get any moral victories. There's no style points for almost hitting the strike zone. It's either a strike or a ball. So I tend to focus very much on results. Like, hey, cool story, bro, but like, you didn't win. We almost won. That means you lost. Someone almost won the Super Bowl last year too, but they didn't. The Eagles won the Super Bowl. Everybody else lost. That's just
And sometimes winning is just on whatever level that you want it to be on. There's nothing wrong with being. I'll go back to me playing in the band. We got played on the radio. There's no greater feeling at 2 a.m. in the morning to hear your song on the radio. Now, yes, I didn't sell millions of records, but I still got to do what I wanted to do. On just the most minor of levels, I still succeeded because I wanted to get up on stage and sing in front of people, and I got to do that. Never made a damn dime, had a lot of fun, but I still got to accomplish that goal, whether nobody could ever take that away from me in any way, shape, or form. So though you have to focus on the little victories, and then they create bigger victories, or at least it gives you that incentive to keep moving forward in whatever path or task that you're trying to accomplish. Well, there are many, many levels to success, and ultimately only we can decide that. And much like with you playing baseball in college, you still got further than 90% of the population. And, when you see people that are like, well, that guy played football and he had a crappy career and he only played for 3 years. Well, they still blew the doors off of 98% of the population and his college kids. So he still accomplished a hell of a lot for playing a game,
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. And to your point, your victory at any particular moment can change. So the example I use for that is, so a team I was playing on, we had like a rivalry game. It was a big game. We were tied for first in the conference, blah, blah, blah. I was our best pitcher at that point in the season. And so I started that game. And the first guy up hit a single, the second guy up hit a double, the third guy up hit like a 400-foot home run. The fourth guy up hit a 500-foot home run. And then the fifth guy up ripped a line drive right back up the middle that hit me directly on my pitching elbow. And so I don't know if anybody's ever been hit on their elbow with a baseball going 110 miles an hour, but like, your arm doesn't work anymore. It hits that nerve and like your hand doesn't work. So I knew at that point I was out of the game. I'd already given up 4 runs. My elbow was already about the size of a tennis ball. I reached down. I'm like, at least I can throw this motherfucker out at first base. And I reached down to pick the ball up. And it's like, remember that crane game in the arcade where it won't pick anything up? That's what my right arm looks like. So I throw my glove down, grab the ball with my left hand to try to throw this guy out at first base. I'm like, if I'm going down, I'm at least going down with every bullet out of my gun, and I'll throw the gun at the guy before he kills me in the gunfight. But I just remember, like, this is the one thing I have left, is to throw this guy out of first base before I walk out of here after getting lit up like a Christmas tree. And that's all I had at that point. So I was going to do that because at least I could do that.
Yeah.
You know, I had no way back machine to go way back before these guys hammered all these balls all over the yard on me. It was what it was at that point. So what was your book about? You've talked about your book a couple times. We haven't talked about it.
The book is called Want More, Take More, and that's what the course is called. Basically, it's the tools that I use to transition from chemistry to real estate and then rebuild my business. There's three main focuses, and it's a self-check, a financial check, and a professional check. And really what that means is, and it's basically exactly what I did, which is the first thing was the professional check was, okay, well, how do I better myself at this job? Maybe this is where I need to be. Okay, I'm going to take some courses. I'm going to try to be a better employee. What opportunities do I have? And then rapidly figure it out. Okay, well, this is not where I want to be. That's where the self-check comes in. What do I need to do? Where do I want to be in this world? I got to have that quote unquote come to Jesus moment of, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? Do I want to stay here or do I want to move forward? What do I really want at the end of the day? And that ties into the financial check, which is, okay, well, if this is what I want to do, I got to cut corners, which means I got to pay my bills off. I got to quit buying this. I got to quit doing that. These are the things that I need to do to get to this next level. So it's a lot of that. A lot of it is, again, working in the dark. That's a massive one with me, because even when I left the grocery store to go work at the chemical plant, I had people like, this is the greatest job you'll ever have. You could be grocery manager one day. No offense to people that are grocery managers, and you do what you got to do. But are you telling me that at 27, this is the best I'm ever going to get? I'm 27 freaking years old. I can't have any dreams more imaginable than this. Yes, I'm going to make $9.95 an hour to go scrape concrete at a chemical plant, but it's still better than the $9 an hour I'm making at the grocery store. And I'm trying to improve myself, and I know that there's going to be new opportunities. So I speak a lot on that. And the other one for me that's big is imposter syndrome, because I have fought with that for forever, even to the point of my editor, when we first started talking about, doing this. And even when I started doing podcasts and talking about different things, there's that little bit of, well, why would anybody want to talk to me? And then, perfect example. So shameless plug here, but it's not what it was intended for. I recently joined My Biz Coaches. I'm going to be one of their real estate coaches, or their top real estate coach. And I'm going to be coaching new agents and bringing in and coaching new coaches and all of that. That being said, Nicole was like, my editor was like, I want you to put a resume together of your greatest hits. And I started writing it up and basically just did like 10 or 11 bullet points. And it was like I showed it to her and I was like, holy shit. I was like, I really am a badass. I really have accomplished things in real estate. She goes, yeah, dummy, you have. And like, I had never thought about it until I put it on paper and went down the list, and I'm going, oh yeah, I guess I did do that. Like, it didn't register for whatever reason. It's in the forefront of my brain. And I have to remind myself that there are people that I do know things, whether I learned them the hard way or whether I didn't, sometimes, depending on what it is. I've got the years of experience, so clearly I know what I'm talking about. And that's been it's almost a cliche, but that's been a big part of, that's what took me so long to get motivated and moving in the first place. You figure I basically blew the first 35 years of my life just doing the bare minimum and doing enough to pay bills, raise kids, but without any plan without any thought process of what I really wanted. It was, okay, well, now I got this chemical job. I could stay here for the rest of my life. So I'm going to work my hours. I'm going to make my little paper. I'm going to take my one vacation a year. I'm going to do all of the little things and cut the grass and all of that. And it really wasn't until I hit 32, 33, when it was like, wait a minute, I could possibly do more. And then, going full-fledged into real estate, and then it progressing from there. And I think a lot of people get stuck in their head on that, or get told that they can't do certain things. And I think that's a big problem. At least that's how I feel anyway.
I totally agree with you. And it's funny because we all think that about ourselves, right? Well, who wants to listen to me? Who's like, I'm not important. Tom Brady is just a guy. He's just a guy that happened to get really good at playing quarterback in the NFL, but he's just a guy. He's been divorced. He's had problems with relationships. He's got problems in his life. He has a trainer that everybody thought was sketchy. It's not just perfect being Tom Brady. He's just a guy that dedicated himself to something that happens to take place in the public eye. Jeff Bezos that you referenced earlier, he's just a guy. He's just a guy that had a really good idea. He was exposed to it when he worked as an investment banker. He was exposed to internet companies, founded Amazon, took his shot, and built it into what it is, but he's still just a guy. Like, everybody is just a person, and the people that make it are the ones that take the limits off of themselves and go after things, learn from their mistakes, and refuse to quit. Like, that's it. There's nothing else special about the people that make it,
And it's a funny thing. It's easier to talk to a room full of strangers about your hopes and dreams than it is to talk to your own peer group. It's like, I literally, when I started doing podcasts, my best friend, his brother was like, so are you getting paid to do these? I'm like, no, it's just something I enjoy doing. And I'm obviously I want to give back to my industry. And this is why I'm doing it, and he's like, well, you're not making any money. What's the point? And I started stumbling and bumbling my way through an explanation, which is, hey, I enjoy doing it. People like to hear what I have to say because I've been doing short sales since 2008 and this and that. But at the same token, I can walk into a room of strangers and go, this is what I think you need to do. This is what I went through. This is how I failed and succeeded and all of that. And yet I'm stumbling and bumbling over somebody that, quite honestly, I see 4 times a year. Opinion means shit to me at the end of the day. I mean, when you've almost died repeatedly, there's only about 9 people in this world whose opinion I really care about.
Yep.
And that varies, from person to person sometimes. But it's very easy when we're in our peer group to stand up and go, hey, this is what I want to do, which is why I recommend just keeping your freaking mouth shut and doing it, or finding your people, your crew, which is the beauty of living in our modern world. Is if I wanted to be my brain just disappeared. If I wanted to write movies, if I wanted to be one of those guys, a screenwriter, I could join 15 screenwriting organizations, and the people across this country could go, I don't even have to tell them who I am. I could submit my screenwriting and they could go, well, this is really good. This sucks. You need to fix this. You need to do that. I can do all of that, to where 25 years ago, I wouldn't have known anybody that ever even been near a movie. They'd have rented movies, but that had been about as close as they ever would have gotten to making a movie or writing a movie or doing any of that stuff. That's the power we have today, is that I can go online and be incognito and learn my craft, or learn how to do what I want to do, and find, quite honestly, the right people that could say, hey, this is really good. You should take it over to this group, but they're going to fine tune it. And this guy may know somebody that can get you into the next spot and keep, working your way slowly up the food chain, or at least figure out if I'm any good at it or not. Because who knows, I may suck, but at least I'll know, one way or the other.
Well, and how many things do you do now that you're good at that you sucked at when you started, right? I always use like walking as an example. None of us stand up and walk across a room when we're kids. Like, you pull yourself up and then you stand up and fall down. You try to take a step and you fall down. At no point at no point do you look around and go, hey, did anyone see me fall? I look stupid. I don't want people to see me looking stupid. And two, nobody comes in and says, hey, you know what? Maybe you're just not a walker. Maybe you should just give it up and you're going to be a
You should
crawler.
crawl. It's good for
Yeah,
you.
you're going to be a crawler.
You got
But we
good
lose
crawling
that.
skills, Bob. We need you
Yeah.
to crawl.
Exactly. We all lose that as adults. Like if you're walking down wherever, I was walking through the airport the other day and I toe picked because the floor was uneven and I toe picked on something and I kind of stumbled. And I thought, well, that wasn't very good. But I didn't look around and go, did anybody see me? But that's what most of us do. Oh, did anyone see me trip and fall? I'm going to look stupid. Hey, newsflash, you're going to look stupid a lot in your life. That's going to happen. Welcome to the world.
Yeah.
It's like I always
quite
tell
honestly,
people, go ahead.
sorry. Most people don't really care what you're doing anyway. None of
That's
us
right.
are nearly as important as we think we are. I got a friend of mine that's a heart surgeon. Now she's important. She's the type of person that should be taking the phone call on the plane. She has every right to do all of that. Most of us are just not that important. And quite honestly, if you're in a room, ain't nobody paying attention to you unless somebody's either got the eye on you because they think you're attractive. But for the most part, nobody really cares what you're doing. I mean,
100%.
That's just the way it is.
Yeah, and we all think that other people think about our lives as much as we do. They got their own shit. They're wrapped up in their own stuff. They don't care about your shit. They got their own shit to deal with, It's pretty wild.
With the exception of probably athletic ability, you can get better at just about anything. I mean, there's a certain point where I realized very quickly, I know you're a baseball guy, I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. And there was no amount of practicing or dedication, not that I had it anyway, was ever going to make me any better. The good Lord did not bless me with that ability. Now, I love to play football and I could tackle and all of that. But as everybody else kept growing and I wasn't growing, I graduated high school. I was like 5'6". Clearly, I'm not playing professional football in any way, shape, or form. It's not happening. There's a certain point where desire gets outweighed by just natural God-given ability. But for the most part, most things on earth we can get better at and improve just by sheer repetition, practice, and quite honestly, just having the balls to figure it out and to keep moving forward, whether it's guitar playing, chess, or learning how to walk when you're apparently a really good crawler. I mean,
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, I watched, I think it was on Netflix. They did like a mockumentary, or I don't know what you call it, a biographic pick on Motley Crue. And so, um, you know, they showed all these guys and none of them seemed like rocket scientists. And it makes you wonder if Tommy Lee hadn't gotten really good at drums and formed Motley Crue, what would he have done with his life? He wasn't going to be a heart surgeon. He wasn't going to be an accountant. He wasn't going to be an attorney. But he didn't need to because he poured everything he had into something that was important to him and he made it. Now, maybe he caught lightning in a bottle. Maybe he got lucky. Maybe he worked harder than everybody. Maybe it's a combination of all those things. I don't know. But I know he put himself out there and took risks and took chances and they paid off for him. And that never would have happened if he hadn't actually taken the shots. And I think that's where most people go wrong, is they sit on the sidelines.
Yeah. Again, it's the average athlete, and the average athlete looks at somebody that played professional baseball for 3 years and was an infielder and had an average of 250 and never really made it, wasn't a star. And they're like, well, that guy sucks. Well, that guy's still better than 90% of the people that are out there. I mean, and we're all guilty of doing it. Like it's a classic Monday night quarterback. I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and I'll find myself going, well, Tomlin should have done this and played this and done that. Tomlin's the coach. I don't know my ass from a hole in the ground, but I'm still going to stick my nose in it in front of my TV and act like I know the better decision to be made. When we both know, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I feel better. And this is going to sound really stupid in our modern world, but it did happen. When females first got into commentating on sports, I made a comment one day. I was like, well, they don't know anything about football. They never played football. And then somebody looked at me and said, well, how far did you get in football? I was like, rec league. It's like, so are you any more qualified to talk about football? Well, if you say it that way, no. So who the hell am I to sit there and go, well, Susie can't talk about football because Susie never played football. Well, clearly I never played football either because I never got past rec football, So I don't know any more than Susie does. So let's not kid ourselves. So,
Yeah.
I think it's an important fact that we all make those assumptions that we're better than perhaps what we are. And there's nothing wrong with that, and especially you're not hurting anybody. I'm going to sit at home. Mike Tomlin doesn't care what I have to say on my couch, telling him that he's doing it the wrong way.
Right. I coached a lot of youth sports. When my wife and I have three sons, and when they were growing up, I coached a lot of their teams, and everybody's always got, I coached baseball and hockey a lot, and you should put the batting order this way. You should pitch this kid. You should put this kid on defense. You should put this kid at center. And I tell people all the time, it's pretty easy to be the head coach when you're not actually the head coach. Once you actually have the clipboard, you have to make the decisions. You have to decide what's going to happen. It gets a lot more complex. And it just does. And right, wrong, or indifferent, you got to do the best you can with what you got. You got to take your shots. I remember I was coaching a hockey team one time, and late in the game, if you're down by a goal, you're going to pull your goalie, put an extra skater on the ice, try to score a goal and tie it up, because it doesn't matter if you lose by 2 or 1. If you're already losing, you may as well take your shot. So we had things set up, and we had our best center taking a face off down in our offensive zone. So I pulled the goalie and I put another skater on. We lost the face-off. The other team drew it back to their defenseman. He flipped it up into the air over everybody's head, all the way down the ice and into the empty net. It was like, a 1 in a million shot, but he made it, and the game's over because we're down by 2 goals with less than a minute left. And somebody, the center, comes back and says, "Why'd you pull the goalie?" And I said, "Why'd you lose a face-off?" And he just looked at me. And I said, "My job is to make that decision. It didn't work. I have full responsibility for it. Your job was to win the face-off. You didn't do it. It's a team effort. We all share in the wins. We all share in the losses. Pointing fingers doesn't do us any good. You didn't like it when I pointed out that you lost the face-off, did you?" And he said, "No." I said, "Then don't do it to other people. I know you didn't lose a face-off on purpose. You did your best. It didn't work. Next time, maybe it comes out different. We took our shot. It didn't work. We're going to regroup and go after the next team." That's just how life is, man. Welcome to life. Doesn't always work out the way you want it to. But that's what I loved about sports, which is there's all sorts of life lessons like that in sports. And I always said, I'd have parents that would say, "Well, Jimmy wants to be a professional baseball player." I'm like, "No, Jimmy doesn't. You want Jimmy to be a professional baseball player." I know what it looks like when someone wants to be a professional baseball player because I got there. I had chances to sign contracts. That ain't what it looks like. And that's okay. Just let him be a kid, man. Let him figure out what's important to him and go after that, because that's where he's going to find success, not chasing what you want him to chase. Like, you can't live your life from someone else's perspective. You got to take your shots. Like you talked about, going from Harris Teeter to the chemical plant, and from the chemical plant to being a realtor. Like, you're taking your shots. It might have taken you longer than you hoped it did, but you did it,
And there's always going to be somebody that knows more than we do, and I think it's the big thing. And I think you have to respect that. And one of the greatest pieces of advice I ever got was my first team leader, the owner of the company, 2008. I had a listing, and I needed to drop the price, but I'm arguing with him what needs to be done. And to his credit, and he was absolutely right. And I'm a hardhead. I'm not going to pretend that I'm not. So I was arguing with him, and he finally just got enough of it. He was like, "Why are you arguing with me?" He was like, "My name is on the door. This is my company. I am the success. You've been here 3 months at this company. Why do you think you know better?" And the freaking light bulb went on, and it was like, "Oh, good Lord, he's right. Why am I, I got 2-3 years of part-time. I'm finally full-time. You're literally, I work for you. It's your name on the door. You're spending all the money, and I'm going to freaking argue with you on how to solve my problem with this property when I should just shut my mouth and do what I'm told." Because at the end of the day, he knew way more than I did. It was one of the greatest things ever said to me. And thank God I was smart enough at that one moment to actually listen and go, "Oh, I get it now. Like the freaking light bulb went on, because I can't say I've always made the best decision to that up until that point and be like, well, what do you know? Because I'm a petulant child. And, sure, you know more than me, but that's only because, but I still know best. No, it's the same conversation I have with somebody selling a house. Yeah, you've sold 2 or 3 houses. Okay. And your point is, it's the proverbial, well, my dad thinks we need to do it this way. Okay, well, your dad sold 3 houses. I sold 3 last week. Who's the expert? Right?
Yeah.
I don't know what your dad does for a living, but I know I can't do it. And I know that if I worked at that company, I'd be working for your dad. Real estate is my company. This is what I do day in and day out. So we're going to do things my way. Sorry.
Yep. That's just how it is, man. Call it like it is. I love it. Well, so Bob, one of the things we do as we start to wrap up here is we ask our guests, we kind of open the floor up for our guests. So is there anything I haven't asked you about or any subject we haven't talked about that you feel is important for our listeners to hear? This essentially the floor is yours, and we can talk about whatever you want to talk about at this point.
I think I touched on a lot of the things that are important, and it's just part of what woven into my life as it is at this point. The other thing I would say is when I went to Miami Web Fest, Brian and I made a point of we had local people in the area that were our interns for that week. So basically, these are guys that are in the industry. They want to be, directors and screenwriters and all of that. And we had about 12 interns, and we made it a point, guys, anybody you want to meet, let us know. We will make an introduction. These are all important people. We've got producers from Fox and places like that. We've got folks of success with screenplays and have had their property signed to Netflix, and they're going to be putting out a show next year. They've done these things. And the first night I'm walk in there and I'm talking to different people. And like we talked about, I met that lady that, was on the Cuban boat lift and all of that. And about 6 of the interns are sitting there playing on their phones and talking to each other. And I said, guys, what are you doing? Like, well, they're like, what? I'm like, and this was the Thursday night. So this was like the fancy meet and greet with like all of the big wigs. The catered meal, the drinks, the whole 9 yards. These are the cream of the crop of Miami's, web series and TV and all of this. And I'm like, well, you guys can go mingle. And none of them got up. Like, why are you going to talk to another intern when you've got all of these important people around here? Yes, you want to be polite. Yes, you want to exchange ideas and all of that. But we've given you a great opportunity to meet and mingle. Now, you may meet some of these people and they may be jerks. That's okay. They're not going to remember that conversation. You will. And you can say, you know what? I'm not going to deal with that guy. But what if you meet somebody that for whatever reason you click with, or they like your idea, or you came from the same upbringing or whatever? That may be an opportunity for you, but you're not going to get it talking to the intern across from you and playing on your phone, talking about how you're going to take Sally out for a date next week. That's not putting any money in your pocket. It's damn sure not getting any closer to your goal. So when you have opportunities to meet people that can impact and move your life, walk up and freaking say hello. What's the worst that can happen? They don't like you. They didn't know who you were anyway. So what difference does it make? So that's my spiel. That's
I love it. And it just I love it because the night I met my wife, I was in a long-term relationship, and the girl, I was living in LA and she was in Portland, Oregon. And we'd been dating 3 years. She called and broke up with me the 2 days before I came home, whatever it was. So I was sitting at home and doing nothing, feeling sorry for myself. And a couple friends called me and said, hey, let's go downtown tonight. Okay. Well, I never went to downtown Portland. Like, it just wasn't something I normally did. I'm like, whatever, it's better than sitting around here. I met my wife that night. Like, that's how we met. So I could have sat at home and felt sorry for myself and, oh, poor me. The girl I've been dating dumped me. She was 100% right, by the way. Our relationship was going nowhere. So she was smart to end it. She's a great gal. I have zero ill will. Things turned out really well for her too. great, awesome. But what would my life have been like if I hadn't taken the opportunity when it was there? And I didn't know what it was going to lead to, but it wasn't going to do me any good to sit in my living room and feel sorry for myself. So, to Bob's point, you just never know what's going to happen. But if you don't take your shots, we can guarantee you nothing's going to happen because people don't wander through your living room and give you opportunities. That's just not how life works, you know?
No. And I keep scratching those lottery tickets and they never pan out. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I maybe I need to buy more of them. That's what I'm doing wrong. That's what it is. I'm not buying enough scratchers. Got to remind myself. You got to spend money to make money, right? Isn't that how that works? Isn't that how the lotto game is played? Am I doing it wrong? No, I'm joking.
That's my 401k, baby. It's my 401k.
I'm buying the wrong dollar scratchers. I got to try the different ones at the different location. That's what I'm doing wrong. I'm going to fix this.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Well, Bob, thanks so much, man. It was so refreshing. I love your directness. I love your candidness. I think our listeners can learn a lot from that. Before we go though, sorry, I'm not asking this very well. Do you have still availability to take on coaching clients?
Oh yes, I always have availability. I can be reached at whatbobthinks.com. Quite honestly, I'm old, so you can actually call me on the phone. Literally, and I'll give the number out. I don't care. 757-403-5401. Call me, ask me a question, whatever. If I can't talk, I'll tell you to text me or call me later. I'm weird that way. I don't have a problem answering the phone. So I'm always available. They can find me on the TikTok at Bob the Agent. They can find me on the Facebook at Bob the Agent. By all means, reach out and say hello or whatever the case may be. Happy to help.
Love it. We'll put all those links in the show notes so that if you didn't get it when Bob said it, you can look in the show notes. So that if you want to get in touch with him about coaching, you want to buy his book, whatever the case may be, if you have a need to talk to Bob, we want to be able to make sure you can get in touch with him because you got a guy here with tons of life experience. You got a guy here with a great mental outlook. You got a guy here that's willing and able to help you with problems if you've got them. So if you're so inclined, we want to make sure you can get in touch with them. So Bob, thanks again. Really appreciate you coming on the podcast. You did a great job. Sorry for the technical difficulties we had. Appreciate you working through those with us, and best of luck to you.
Awesome. I had a great time. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thanks, Bob.
Bye.
Okay, guys. So, like we said in the intro, Bob doesn't fuck around. He gets right to it. He gives real direct feedback. Love his approach to things. Love his message, and he's sharing through his life experiences of taking action, of fighting through adversity. Was very candid about. I didn't like where I was, so I built a business. Then my health issues really caused me financial problems. I needed to ask people for help. At that point, rebuilt my business, started the coaching business, written a book. He's a guy you can learn a lot from. We even got a little nugget in there about him being in a heavy metal band, the lead singer of a heavy metal band back in the 90s. So great interview and a great job by Bob. Hope you guys recognize the high quality people we're putting in front of you who can really help you change your life. And like we talked about, all of the contact information for Bob will be in the show notes. So if you want to engage him as a coach, you want to talk to him about something, you'll be able to get in touch with him there too. So don't forget, guys, James puts it up over here every day. Head over to our website, saltygingertalk.com. You can get all of our podcast episodes there. You can get links to all our social media accounts there. We've got a newsletter we publish every weekday that you can subscribe to there. And please, before you go, like, share, and subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you consume it on. It's super helpful for us if you're able to do that. So more great interviews coming, more great episodes coming. Really appreciate you guys checking out the channel. Hoping you get a ton of value out of that because we're putting a ton of value in front of you. And we will see you guys on the next episode.